Hi, my name is Michele Bachmann. I am thrilled to be able to be with you tonight in Las Vegas. And this is one night when I hope what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas.
What's your position on replacing the federal income tax with a federal sales tax?
I'll direct that to Congresswoman Bachmann. You've been very critical of Herman Cain's 999 plan, which calls for a 9% sales tax, a 9% income tax, a 9% corporate tax. In fact, you said it would destroy the economy. Why?
Well, I am a former federal tax litigation attorney, and also my husband and I are job creators. One thing I know about Congress, being a member of Congress for 5 years, is that any time you give the Congress a brand new tax, it doesn't go away. When we got the income tax in 1913, the top rate was 7%. By 1980, the top rate was 70%. If we give Congress a 9% sales tax, how long will it take a liberal president and a liberal Congress to run that up to maybe 90%? Who knows? What I do know is that we also have to be concerned about the hidden tax of the value-added tax, because at every step and stage of production, you'd be taxing that item 9% on the profit. That's the worry. In my plan, again, that's a tax plan. It's not a jobs plan. My plan for economic recovery is real jobs right now. I have a tax plan. I have a jobs plan. I have an energy plan and a plan to really turn this country around and create millions of high-paying jobs.
I want to bring in Congresswoman Bachmann since she was referenced by you.
But Anderson, how do you not have a value-added tax? Because at every level of production, you have a profit. And that profit gets taxed because you produce one portion at one level, and then you take it to the next supplier or vendor at the next level, and you have an exchange. That is a taxable event, and ultimately that becomes a value-added tax. It's a hidden tax, and anytime the federal government needs revenue, they dial up the rate, and the American people think that it is the vendor that creates the tax, but it's the government that creates the tax.
Congresswoman Bachmann, you also said at the last debate that everyone should pay something. Does that mean that you would raise taxes on the 47% of Americans who currently don't pay taxes?
I believe absolutely every American benefits by this magnificent country. Absolutely every American should pay something. Even if it's $1, everyone needs to pay something in this country. That's why with my tax plan, I take a page out of not theory, but what's provable and what works. What is provable and what works was the economic miracle that was wrought by Ronald Reagan in the 1980s. That is the plan that I look at. I also want to completely abolish the tax code. I want to flatten the tax for all of Americans, simplify that tax for all of Americans, and that creates job growth, which is exactly what we need to have. Because to be able to fuel the fire for this economy, again, it is the tax code, but it doesn't end with the tax code. It's the regulatory burden that costs us $1.8 trillion every year, but it's more than that cost. It's jobs that are lost. So we need to repeal Obamacare, repeal the Jobs and Housing Destruction Act, known as Dodd-Frank. Oh, President Obama's plan has been a plan for destruction of this economy and failure.
Thank you.
I plan to change that with real jobs right now at MichelleBachmann.com. Anderson, I think it has to be stated that Obamacare is so flat out unpopular that even the Obama administration chose to reject part of Obamacare last Friday when they tried to throw out the Class Act, which is the long-term care function. The Secretary Sebelius, who's the head of Health and Human Services, reported that the government can't even afford that part and has to throw it out, and now the administration is arguing with itself. When even the Obama administration wants to repeal this bill, I think we're going to win this thing. We're going to repeal it, and I will.
Congresswoman Bachmann, do you agree with Governor Perry?
Well, I think the person who really has a problem with illegal immigration in the country is President Obama. It's his uncle and his aunt who are illegal aliens who've been allowed to stay in this country despite the fact that they're illegal. This last Saturday, I was the very first candidate that signed a pledge that said that by a date certain, I will build a double-walled fence with a area of security neutrality in between. I will build that because this is what we know. This is an economics issue and a jobs issue.
You're saying you'll build a fence along the entire border?
I will build it on the entire border, and I'll tell you why. Every year, it costs this country $113 billion in the cost that we put out to pay for illegal aliens. It costs the state and local government of that amount $82 billion. For every household of an American citizen, it costs us $1,000 a year. We are robbing the household of Americans who can't afford that. I will build the fence. I will enforce English as the official language of the United States government. And every person who comes into this country will have to agree that they will not receive taxpayer-subsidized benefits of any American citizen.
Fine.
Thank you.
To the question on the 14th Amendment, do you support repealing the 14th Amendment?
No.
No, you do not.
I do not.
Congresswoman Bachmann, do you support it?
I think there's a very real issue with magnets in this country, and I think the issue that you're referring to is the issue of anchor babies. And that's an issue that I was just in Arizona this last weekend, and the state is very concerned because when someone comes illegally across the border, specifically for the purpose of utilizing American resources to have a baby here, then all of the welfare benefits then attach to that baby. This is an issue that we don't have to deal with the Constitution. This is an issue that we can deal with legislatively, and there are a lot of Americans that would like us to deal with this issue of anchor babies legislatively.
Congresswoman Bachmann, does the federal government have a role in keeping people in their homes, saving people from foreclosure in the state of Nevada?
That was the question that was initially asked, and what I want to say is this. Every day I'm out somewhere in the United States of America, and most of the time I am talking to moms across this country. When you talk about housing, when you talk about foreclosures, you're talking about women who are at the end of their rope because they're losing their nest for their children and for their family. And there are women right now all across this country and moms across this country whose husbands, through no fault of their own, are losing their job and they can't keep that house. And there are women who are losing that house. I'm a mom. I talk to these moms. I just want to say one thing to moms all across America tonight. This is a real issue. It's got to be solved. President Obama has failed you on this issue of housing and foreclosures. I will not fail you on this issue. I will turn this country around. We will turn the economy around. We will create jobs. That's how you hold on to your house. Hold on, moms out there. It's not too late.
Currently, there's a deficit reduction measure to cut defense spending by $500 billion. Would you support such a reduction in defense spending? And if elected president, how will you provide a strong national defense?
Congresswoman Bachmann, should defense be cut?
Well, $500 billion is the amount that the questioner had mentioned. And don't forget, this was a historic week when it came to American foreign policy. We saw potentially an international assassination attempt from Iran on American soil. That says something about Iran, that they disrespect the United States so much that they would attempt some sort of a heinous act like that. Then we saw the President of the United States engage American troops in a fourth conflict in a foreign land. This is historic. Then on Sunday, we heard the reports that now that in Iraq, that the 5,000 troops that were going to be left there won't even be granted immunity by Iraq. This is how disrespected the United States is in the world today, and it's because of President Obama's failed policies. He's taken his eyes off the #1 issue in the world. That's an Iran obtaining a nuclear weapon. That makes all of us much danger, and the President of Iran is a genocidal maniac. We need to stand up against Iran, and as President of the United States, we will be respected again in the world.
The question, though, was about budget cuts, and is everything on the table in terms of cutting the budget?
Absolutely everything.
So defense spending would be on the table, should be.
Defense spending is on the table, but again, Anderson, now with the president, he put us in Libya. He is now putting us in Africa. We already were stretched too thin, and he put our special operations forces in Africa.
Want to make sure it's on the table.
It's on the table, but we cannot cut it by $500 billion. We can't do that to our brave men and women who are on the ground fighting for us.
With their neighbors at their own will.
Should we cut foreign aid to Israel?
No, we should not be cutting foreign aid to Israel. Israel is our greatest ally. The biggest problem is the fact that the biggest problem with this administration and foreign policy is that President Obama, as the first president since Israel declared her sovereignty, put daylight between the United States and Israel. That heavily contributed to the current hostilities that we see in the Middle East region. Cutting back on foreign aid is one thing. Being reimbursed by nations that we have liberated is another. We should look to Iraq and Libya to reimburse us for part of what we have done to liberate these nations. Now, I need to add something on this issue of negotiating for hostages. This is a very serious issue. For any candidate to say that they would release the prisoners at Guantanamo in exchange for a hostage would be absolutely contrary to the historical nature of the United States and what we do in our policy. That's naive. We cannot do that. The United States has done well because we have an absolute policy. We don't negotiate.
Congresswoman Bachmann, 30 seconds.
The good news is the cake is baked. Barack Obama will be a one-term president. There's no question about that. Now the question is, we need to listen to Ronald Reagan, who said, no pastels, bold colors. I am the most different candidate from Barack Obama than anyone on this
Speaker
stage.
Gingrich?
We can't settle in this race.
Speaker